Welcome to Rich Planet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. In a previous show I interviewed David McCann and Sharon McKellars, who have written a book called A Madness Shared by Two. Their book is an investigation into events which occurred in 2008 when two Swedish twins, Sabina and Ursula Eriksson, whilst being filmed by a BBC documentary film crew, both seemed to run out in front of M6 motorway traffic in a supposed suicide pact. One of the twins, who was released by the authorities soon after this event, went on to stab and apparently kill Glen Hollinshead at his house in Fenton near Stoke-On-Trent. A documentary about these events was aired in 2010 by the BBC, which caused huge speculation about the reasons behind what happened. Now, I did read out some comments from viewers about the previous interview with Sharon and David on a subsequent show, and to say that David was displeased at me is an understatement, but we've since reconciled that situation and agreed to do a second, more in-depth interview because the book does bring to light a lot of information that isn't widely known about in the public domain, and we're going to talk about that today. So welcome back, David.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay then, now I just want to start by asking you about your blog, because when you first saw the documentary you were massively intrigued by it. You set up a blog because you've uncovered so many holes in the official story, both in the BBC documentary and both in the police investigation and in the trial. And if you read this book, you will realise that there's so much has not been told about this story, and in particular your investigation of the Hollinshead killing there's a lot of information in there that you've got from all kinds of different sources, the people that you've interviewed and police sources, etc.
Coroner's report.
Now let's just focus in on the twins first, and then we'll talk about what happened. These two twins, they're Swedish. Now there is a little bit of background in the book to these two twins, that they're from Sweden and they've also lived in Norway, or they've also spent time in the United States. And you do look at some of their family. One of them, Sabina, the one who allegedly stabbed Hollinshead, has a brother called Bjorn, and he has made statements in the Swedish press. She also has two children and a son called Simon, who's 24. Now I would say that compared to your investigation of the Hollinshead stabbing, the actual amount of background information that you've got on the twins is patchy. Would you agree with that? That you haven't got a chronology of exactly where they've lived and their lives beforehand?
It's fair to say it's patchy. I mean, you know, I could say it's as good as it's going to get as far as establishing where they were. But you're right, and I say it's in regards to Sabina more so. The twin that's alleged to kill them, I could say that are missing years, because there is a point where, say, from about a 5-year period within the 2000s up to there is Sabina seems to go missing.
So between 2000 and 2006, Sabina's son goes to live in America with her sister Ursula, and you're not sure where Sabina was.
It doesn't seem to be with Sabina, and so something must have happened to her in that time.
Now in the BBC film they claim that they travelled from Ireland immediately before their bus journey, which they then got off and went to the motorway. Now you've tried to trace their connections to Ireland and haven't found any firm, even to confirm whether they were living in Ireland or not. Well, you certainly know they've been in Sweden, Norway and the United States, but the island connection is...
The island connection is dubious. She's obviously... Sabina definitely was in Ireland, in Cork, according to the police, the Garda, who I've spoken to, who were very cautious on what they said to me. They wouldn't answer because they realised they're talking about their British police, see? Because it had been Merseyside police that first contacted the Garda in Ireland. Which we're going to get to in a minute. The most amazing thing is that what was significantly said to the the Liverpool police by Sabina and her sister was never being mentioned until this, which is a very important thing.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that. And now, in the documentary, as I said, it said that they travelled from Ireland, and still no one seems to know what the function of their journey was. Or again, we'll come on to that, where they were coming from, where they were going to. And you've tried to find corroborated witnesses of them being on the ferry coming from Dublin, and you've drawn a blank on that.
Well, not only the ferry, you've got to realise it's a bit like 9/11 really. If you notice, I mean, one of the things that intrigues me about 9/11, just going off subject, but what does intrigue me is that at any one time, and it's the same as the Aurora shooting and now the Sandy Hook, they never come up with CCTV footage. Yeah. And yet, really, if you try to get through that London Underground station without buying your ticket, you'll be caught on about 20 cameras, and they'd use that as evidence in court.
In good definition.
In good definition, exactly. So that's exactly what it is. And this is what I'm saying. Again, Sabina and her sister have supposedly been to all the major places where CCTV cameras are saturated, and yet nothing can be produced, or no witnesses have said they've seen them at the ferries, either in Ireland or in England, on the coach. It says witnesses see him on the coach. No one's ever come forward in almost so many years now. It's 5 years almost. Okay. No one witnesses ever come forward and said, I drove them, I was on the coach, I was on... No one.
So the official story says they came from Dublin on a ferry. There's no evidence of that you've managed to find. So before they get to Liverpool, because you've got them in Liverpool, I think, you're not really sure where they came from. Now, in Liverpool, which this bit was not reported in the BBC documentary, they walk into a police station and express concern over Sabina's children. Exactly. Just tell us about that, David.
Well, first let me just quickly say, we looked at all the ferry times, the companies, etc. Now, accordingly, they're down in the south of Cork. They've then come from there, they've had to go to Dublin to get the ferry across. Now, we've always been led to believe that was London bound. For one, if you come from Ireland, which I've done the journey enough time, my family's Irish, always goes to Holyhead. You don't go all the way up and add another 200 miles on your journey and hours involved. You go downwards. So if they was, so that just comes that theory up, says that's a load of rubbish. And that, therefore, they couldn't get a passenger. They couldn't become a foot passenger. The ferry doesn't run from Dublin. You have to get a car, and as you know, security involves. You have to be the name driver. You have to pay by credit card. The terrorism bombings between IRA and mainland. The security is very strict. You might not see it, but they're watching you. You know, it's there every angle. They're very cautious who's in and out of the country. So, and
they supposedly only had one passport between them as well.
In fact, it was only Ursula who had a passport. Sabina didn't have one. Ursula's passport was found on Sabina once she threw herself off the motorway the second time onto the A50. The police found the passport then, but they found it earlier when they was on M6. So all I'm just trying to say is that going back to Liverpool, this is it. So all of a sudden, there's no way that I can. The official story, they made this journey from Cork. It didn't happen in my eyes because it's impossible. They would have had to have gone to Northern Ireland if anything, and then you could get a foot passenger across. But it takes hours longer. Would have put all the time sequence out events. So anyway, go back to what you said.
Yes. So something which wasn't mentioned in the BBC documentary is that they went a few hours before they got on the bus to a police station in Liverpool. That's what I'm saying. So where did you get that information from, David? Is that FOI? Or
no. So what happened was, who first told me was the Hollinsheads themselves. It was John Hollinshead, one of the brothers of Glen, who I had to get there. Who I had to get permission from to represent them.
And you've had extensive contact with the Hollinshead, and that's all in the book.
Yeah. So they mentioned that the police family liaison officer at the time had said the girls had gone into Liverpool station police, and they've been recorded on CCTV. And a weird thing I just put in for the moment, whilst they was in the reception area waiting, a fella walked in with a high-vis jacket on. Ursula freaked out and jumped up onto the counter. She sort of really freaked out on the sight of this high-vis jacket. They realised that she was reacting to him, told the bloke to leave. Apparently he wasn't a police officer, he was like a builder or something. I don't know, this is only, hearsay of what's been said up there. But that was just pointed out. Paul Hollinshead told me that, the other brother. So I thought, well, that's a bit. It's just an intriguing thing to pick up about the high-vis jacket and the way she reacted. Cut long story short, there they are. They've gone into St Anne's police station at 8:40 in the morning. Very quite irate, a bit hysterical, reporting that her children, Sabina's meaning, had been kidnapped. So, God, you know, an accusation as strong as that is yet was never mentioned by the police in the official story or the documentary.
Right.
So you think, well, that cannot be true. So I had to then, after contacting the Liverpool, you know, the chief inspectors and whatever one and their professional standard departments, they agreed that Liverpool Mersey Police furnished me with the
log.
The log.
Yeah.
So
you had it confirmed from the police log that they had in fact walked into a police station the day this event happened, a few hours beforehand.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were, to me, it sounded as if perhaps it was some kind of custody thing. Like there was a partner not letting Sabina have access to her children.
Yeah.
The kidnapping is possibly maybe an exaggeration.
Yes, it could
but
be.
people do that when they report things to the police so that they'll take action. But she was concerned about the children who were allegedly in Ireland.
Yeah.
But you're not convinced they even travelled from Ireland.
No.
So there's a bit of mystery over where they came from and whether her children had been kidnapped.
Yeah.
So she's telling this story. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, people have in your book. There is appendices on both mind control and super soldiers, and I'm of the mind that there's possibly a bit of mind control going on here. I mean, you mentioned this high-vis jacket thing. That's possibly a trigger. I don't know.
No,
to some program that's.
Why I mention that is because if Ursula reacted like that in the station, which we were unaware of, it goes then. They reacted similar once on the hard shoulder, high-vis jackets viewing them.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened again up on the A50 before she jumped off the bridge with a paramedic being in her high-vis as well and trying to negotiate with her.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm open to let the reader and the viewer come to their own conclusion in a sense, because it's a patchwork quilt. So I filled in, I would say, 85% of all the patches, but there is a good 15% that still needs to come about that can only be revealed if the court bundle police have got.
We'll come on to that. Now, so this was not mentioned at all in the BBC documentary that these women had been into this police station. So it's
incredible. Yeah.
It's bad journalism in my view. How come the BBC didn't find that out? Why didn't they report it? Surely it was significant. And you said that in the BBC documentary, the police made certain statements in that documentary, which they wouldn't have made if the Liverpool story was true. Just you've mentioned that in your.
Yes.
I'm not very explaining that very well. Just explain that for us, David.
Well, because for instance, you've got PC Elliott, which is one of the chaps in the BBC film. He was a bearded chap. He's the one that allegedly had drung up Ireland to speak to Sabina's partner. Now, he'd meant to have been done this in the evening after the sister had run out on into the motorway. Ursula was already in intensive care, but now, as you know, Sabina was released only after 5 hours, so she was in police custody while this PC Elliott was allegedly on the phone to Sabina's partner.
And that was screened.
Well, that's a total lie. That's a complete invention then, because how can they say it clearly on the film, the partner was surprised he didn't even know she'd left. Right. Where he should be saying, well look, Mr. Elliott, you're the second police force that's got onto me. I had Liverpool contact me this morning. The Garda have been round to the house and I've spoke to them. Right. So it's not no surprise.
So you think that whole scene was possibly fabricated by the BBC crew?
Not by the crew, by the police.
Or stroke police.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and because it's the police saying it. And you also go back to then DC Garrett, Dave Garrett, the DCI. He also turns around and says, we have he says on the film, so you've got Elliott, I would say allegedly, lying, and DC Garrett as well, because DC Garrett turns around and says, at no time did we have any idea why they were in the UK. Or why they were going to London. They want you to believe they was going to London because it's on a London-bound coach. Right. But what I'm saying is, he's lying, because he would say, well, to tell you the truth, 5 hours earlier, the sisters had gone in and reported their children being kidnapped. Kids being kidnapped. That's what. Why? So what I'm saying is, when factual things such as that are taken out of the story. That is the indicator that the Obbo, there's something there to hide then, that's,
okay.
That's the beginning.
So let's just bring that in now and David before we go to the break. This term Obbo, it means some person who's under observation for whatever reason by not PC plod, by some covert specialist group that's perhaps observing them for drugs or perhaps another reason.
Exactly. Obbo goes on every day of the week. They're normally, there's mostly half a dozen running in London at the moment. They run into millions of pounds. They can go on for years and months. They're either for armed robberies, people into terrorism, all sorts of people. Well, anyway, and they're not
drug
just
trafficking.
Drug trafficking is the main one. So,
Yeah.
but the main thing is, so that's the police who normally deal with them. But apart from that, as you know, our police work with all security agencies, Interpol, Europol. We've got the FBI, CIA. They all work, under an umbrella organisation, and so. All kinds of people are under Obbo.
Right, and there are other reasons which we'll come on to as to why these women didn't seem to be treated just as two normal members of the public. That there was maybe a flag against their names for some reason to be treated specially.
Well, I would just quickly. This is one instance. When I was under Obbo, which I personally was involved for something, I was involved with quite serious crime, which I mentioned in other books and that. Right. But just for instance, I'm a teetotal now, but what I'm saying is when I was a younger lad, I did drink a little bit heavier. I drank for England at certain times, and a bit of a young lad who done what he had to do, East End of London. Anyway, cut long story short, it's about 3:30 in the morning. I was going home. I was over the limit and really ashamed of it, because I don't agree with it at all. But I was over the limit, and I was. I would have failed any breathalyzer, put it that way. I was stopped by the police about 3 in the morning. We say, got out. They've done a name check. Give me the bag. I blew it. It almost melted. I'm proud again, but I'm just saying. I knew I was banging trouble.
Right.
I knew I was being arrested. Right. There's nobody could let me go. They've done a name check, and then literally, the policeman said, "It's your lucky day, son. Give him the key back," and drove away.
Right.
Now I was in the middle of this road thinking, how can you leave me in this state? Don't let me get back in that car. It's my own car. But they left me.
Right.
It weren't until about 2 months later I'd realised Scotland Yard had me under Obbo. Right. So when they'd done the check on me, I was caught banging to rights. The officers was going to arrest me, but they went, this fella, Dave McCann, registration number, he's under Obbo.
And we don't need to go into why David was under Obbo.
No,
obviously
exactly.
You were involved in something. You recognised this part of the story as the fact that they might have been treated specially because they're under observation.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When you get, I've had it to myself, you get this treatment, for instance, I have a tape. This has never been said. I have a tape, hidden tape. I had a concealed tape where I had a conversation like this, but you as a police officer would say. The police officer turned around to me wanting to frame certain people, said, don't worry, David, if no one has touched anything, because we can put fingerprints on something they've never touched before.
Really?
Now I've got this on film, okay, on a microphone. It's called my get out of jail free tape, because that saved me from getting a 10-12 stretch.
Right.
They could not let my case go to court. The reason by the Birmingham 6, the Guildford 4 and Danny McNee, who got done for the Hyde Park bombing, were all appealing for fingerprint evidence had been planted. Right. And their appeals were going on while I was in police custody with this tape.
Right. Right. All right. Then,
I was given a gag silence order to sign for 3 years. I couldn't talk to no media, couldn't talk to anyone, write a book for 3 years. Really? That's why I believe Sabina's in a similar situation.
Right.
You get to sign it. I had to sign my case in the judging chambers. Privately comes in, hello David, the judge, you have this it's in camera. My case was held in camera, and the prosecution turned around and say, in regards to Mr. McCann and his partner, we nolly prosecute, we don't want to prosecute any further, and I was given immunity.
Right. Okay. All right, and David, well, we'll be talking more about a madness shared by two after this break.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm talking to David McCann about his book, A Madness Shared by Two. Now then, David, we were talking about when people are under observation, they might get special police treatment, well, special in inverted commas, because it's used they're using a small fish to try and catch a bigger fish. Yeah. That's the purpose of it. Now, I don't know what happened in this event at all. Your theory might be completely right, but you think that they were possibly under observation because there might have been drug smuggling, okay? And you list various pieces of circumstantial evidence in your book to try and support that. Yeah. I would suggest that if mind control was involved and there was some kind of MK Ultra style programming or what have you by whoever, MI5 or someone like that, that they too might have these two women under observation for some other project. Okay, and as you say, people can read the book and look at the evidence and come to their own conclusions. But let's continue pointing out all of these flaws, David. Let's just briefly stick on the motorway incident. I've looked at that a few times, and the more I look at it, the less convinced I am by it. In other words, you turn the volume off, you realise that what they're presenting there, it's just, to me, it's not what happened. You can tell. I mean, there's a couple of things which happened which was completely taken out of the BBC documentary.
The most vital thing and what confused everyone was, is you realise after that incident, after the accident, Sabina was released after 5 hours. Only 5 hours. Now, the MP, the brothers were screaming out, why did this woman be released after only
just fill me in on that, David, because I'm not clear on, was she released and then put into custody and then appeared in a magistrate?
That's right. She was released from hospital into police custody to the magistrate.
And then about another day, she went before the judge, and then they just let her out onto the street.
So the M6 incident happened on a Saturday. On a Saturday, she was released after 5 hours on a Saturday evening
from hospital.
Into the police suite until the Monday morning. Right. She was produced at Fenton Magistrates, and then that's when she was released from Fenton Magistrates on that Monday.
And then on the Monday, she was hanging around the court. And then that was when she met Hollinshead. But we'll come on to that in part 3.
That's right.
We'll leave the
let me just go back to the section 1 things you were pointing out.
So on the motorway,
there they are. They kicking off. So obviously we've got a road ambulance was called, and a chopper, helicopter ambulance. The crews then refused to take them in that state because they were far too dangerous to transport, especially in the helicopter. So both the sisters were sedated.
Injected,
yeah. Right. So liquid cash knocked straight out. Now, they realise, because they're trained, that when you encounter someone like this, there is what they call Section 136 of the Mental Health Act, 1983 Mental Health Act. That allows, because as you know, if you arrest someone, you must read them their rights and the caution that they're under arrest. That's the legal requirement. Or you do it in the most. If a person is knocked unconscious, as soon as they gain consciousness, you should tell them at the first early opportunity. Now, by them women being sedated, they've now not been read their rights. Right. So it's a technicality up the road in a legal case. Further up the road, it's a technicality. Well, you never read my, the rights to my client. Yeah. So anyway, they were knocked out. PC Finlis as governor, you'll see on the edited out footage which we've uploaded on YouTube and people can now see, you will see that they both agreed that these sisters, in their eyes, should be arrested and under the 136 Mental Health Act. Right. Yeah, that was edited out.
And he's on the radio and his sergeant or inspector, whoever.
So he's standing next to him. He's actually next to him, and the crew are filming it.
And he says, arrest them under this act.
That's it. Well, he says, you'll see in the book, it actually says this is on the footage that was edited out. Right. The narrator says, now the woman is safely restrained, PC Finlinson updates his senior officer. Then it goes straight to PC Finlinson. Right, this one has gone over the bonnet of that car. She's then got up, punched Tracy, and gone over there. The inspector standing next to him. Yeah. This one, is she arrest note? And as he said, no. So what I would say he's going to say was, is she arrest been notified? Right. No. So meaning that she's been notified of arrest. Okay. Then it goes straight back to Finlis, and he says, well, 136, and she is. Well, 136 and she is. Now that was edited out. Right. Now, 136 she is meant nothing to me. Right. But it means everything if you're a trained police officer or a medical worker. Right. Because 136 is 136 of the Mental Health Act. Right. So we only learned that afterwards.
Does that mean they don't have to read them out the rights then if they arrest them under that?
It means that technically by them being arrested, then they're being taken to a safer place, a place of safety. Right. This is in the law. Right. So they're now taken to a safer place, which is a hospital or a police station normally.
Right. So effectively they're saying we believe this person's a nutter, so we don't have to read them their rights or go through any of that, because they're not a compass mentis of mind sort of thing.
That's right.
And they need to be treated by some other professional, which is why they were taken to the hospital. Now in the documentary, it insinuated that they'd been arrested for trespass and assault. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
But they hadn't.
Well, the fact is they did trespass, that's one thing.
Yeah.
So that she, in fact, Ursula was never charged with anything.
Right.
So she never been charged. Sabina was charged with, allegedly, a trespass and assault. Well, it turns out, that's, if you look at the documentary, the documents that I've, in the book that I've, and the people I've spoken to, the Attorney General, according to him, and the Home Office, Sabina actually, the charge against Tracy, who she punched, she sort of, as you see, she said the word, this PC cope, and on the motorway, that was dropped. Because when she went to Fenton, it appears that really she was only charged with trespass, and that's why she was mostly. Again, they made it as easy for the magistrate not to have to do the normal procedure, which the normal procedure is you'd insist on a probationary pre-sentence report. That's what you would ask for under these conditions. But if you drop the case, like, take away the assault, it's only a trespass on the motorway, make it more lenient, then you'll make it a bit more easy for the judge, for the magistrate. You don't have to collude so much to him and say, let this one out. Because he can technically let her out immediately.
And you'll think this is all done because there's some higher authority.
Yeah, that's how it works. As soon as PC Cope done that, arrested the girls under the 136, he has to fill out with, say, a form. Once they go to the hospital, the police give a copy to the nurse as they admitted in, and then it's kept on a record. It's a special thing. So the hospital has one copy of it, and so do the police. Well, the police have got no record of it now.
Right.
Because we asked to see, could you please show us this record? And the police wrote back and said, there is no record of it, it didn't exist. But then we showed them the edited out version of the tape and said, well, what's that then? They've not answered.
Right, all right, so there's some sort of cover-up going on there, it looks like.
Definitely.
Now, let's just come on to what might have happened in the hospital. There would have been a medical trained professional in psychiatric or mental health has assessed them, and then said they're okay to go. Well,
by law, if you're arrested under Section 136, you have to have 3 professional bodies that see you, AMPs, who actually will assess you. So one is got to be a social worker, so it doesn't necessarily, but they're normally trained in psychology, that kind of thing. The other is normally a doctor of some kind. But so there's 3 people who assess you, apparently, and they say, in their opinion, person's okay, not in a danger. But they should be sacked immediately. If 3 people all agreed that there was nothing wrong with this woman,
and she's done what she's done on the motorway, and then gone and murdered a guy.
Exactly.
So not murdered. Well, it's
allegedly murdered.
Whatever. So there's, and you think there's possibly some matter of national security come in there and said, no, release her. We want her out. We don't want some psychiatrist messing around with her because she's part of some other project.
Exactly.
Which you think is a drug smuggling operation, observation, and I think might be some kind of mind control project.
I think, as I say, it's one or the other, but I think, because I say on my own experience and what I've known,
well, David, to be honest, it's one or the other, or I don't know. I wouldn't limit it to that one or the other. It's so bizarre.
It is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But it certainly looks as though they were treated with special
without
gloves.
That. They were given. They were given what we would call green lights.
Right.
They were given the green light. Let me just show the 3 flags. Or the 4 flags.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've gone straight into St Anne Street Police Station, claiming their children have been kidnapped by a lunatic partner in Ireland. And the men associated to him. Green light straight away.
Yeah.
Within 45 minutes they're released.
Yeah.
The next minute they're on a coach, banned, London banned, right?
Yeah. Now we've not discussed that in detail, David. They got kind of thrown off the coach because the driver wanted them to put their bags in the bottom part of the coach, and they wouldn't do that. They were clinging onto their bags, which you think is possibly a sign of some sort of that they might have been involved in trafficking something.
Well, if you had 100 grand in your bag, you wouldn't feel too comfortable underneath.
Now, but they got kicked off the coach, which is why they started walking down this motorway, presumably because they hadn't got another means of transport.
Well, again, the official story, the police story, The Wikipedia story, which is all wrong, that Wikipedia story, I've written to the people who've done the page to change it, but they prefer the truth.
There's loads of things wrong on Wikipedia, David.
Oh, we know that's for sure. But I mean, when you point things out to people and you can show them evidence, they still don't want to alter it. You think, well, who set up this Wikipedia page in the first place?
Yeah.
They want to maintain the full story then.
Yeah.
And when people want to maintain a full story, you know, it's even a bigger story then, because why are they?
Yeah.
They should be saying, God, have you since? Oh, and you can prove the evidence.
Right.
It's not, you know, what I'm saying is not a hearsay at all. It's backed up with documentary evidence from the police themselves, the coroner, whoever involved.
Right. There was certainly appeared to have been given some kind of special treatment, but although the frustrating thing is there's no hard documentary evidence of a police document saying these are under observation. This is not the kind of thing that they would release. It would be.
Oh, they can't, can they? They would never even admit it.
Okay.
See, it's like me when I was under Robbo, and when I agreed to do a deal with the police, part of that deal was I would remain silent for 3 years.
So let's go from the point of she's been released from hospital back into police custody, saying, hey, she's okay, let her go, and possibly that's come from some 3-letter agency telling them to do that, perhaps.
Well, that's what happens. Saying, if you're under Robbo, like I said.
So then she's gone back into police custody. A day's gone by. She spent a day in custody. She's then in front of the magistrate. Okay, and then the magistrate then says she's okay to go as well. Right. Okay. Well, we'll continue what happened from then on, because there's a whole load more to this story after this. Welcome back. I'm talking to David McCann about his book, A Madness Shared by Two. Now then, David, you were just listing for us the reasons why these women seem to have been treated specially and therefore were possibly under some kind of special observation. Just list them for us.
Yeah, so just briefly. There they are. They've arrived about 8:40 in the morning, quite panicked up, reporting Sabina's children being kidnapped by her partner and men associated to her. That's that one there. Now, that to me, that's a green flag. That's a green light, because all they did was done a brief inquiry and let them go. Now, you know, when someone makes a serious accusation like that, you would act on it, but they've let them go. The next thing, they've gone from that police station and now appeared on a coach. They said that the coach driver insisted that they put their bags under the hole. Well, that's got to be a fabrication. I'll tell you why. They was already on the coach, weren't they? Right. They was already travelled. The coach driver would now not all of a sudden, halfway through the journey, say, right, I want you, now got them bags on you, I want you to put them on the coach. Okay. It doesn't happen. Plus they're hand luggage. You read the National Express's own stuff. You're allowed to carry them, aren't you? They're not under the goods, under the coach. So that didn't happen. Melissa Dutton, who was the manager of Kill Services.
So they've been kicked off the bus, allegedly. And then they're kind of stranded at this service station, and
well, so that's it. So they're at the Kill Services. Okay, it didn't happen. It wasn't a driver change. The police said it was a driver change. If you look at the official police story, they said the driver changed. But Kill Services never is a changeover for this service, for this particular coach, or the other coach that they could have maybe got, which I've suggested by accident. So. The Melissas looked at them and thought, hello, I don't like the way they're holding the bags. As if they own everything they own in their life is being held to their chest.
You've got quite a long statement from Melissa Dutton.
Yeah, that's right.
All in the book,
Yeah, and I interviewed her after the event. So anyways, what I'm saying is, so she was concerned that they was carrying a bomb. Right. Now, if you mention a bomb to a 999 call and you're a manager of a service station, look how they reacted to the megabus incident only recently last year, when an e-cigarette or was it a smoking bag, they shut down the motorway, they tented it off, they had armed trained officers everywhere. There was no mention of a bomb, yet in Sabina's and Eric Ursula's case, this manager's reported suspicious of a bomb. Who did they send? 3 police walked up, says only 2, but actually 3 police officers arrived. They've done a name check, and that's when you get it again. They've done a name check, and they've decided to let the girls go without searching them or searching their luggage or anything. So that's exceptionally a green light again.
And then the third one is what
happened? The third one is to be released after from hospital only after 5 years of and your sister is still in intensive care.
Okay. The film crew, Mentorn, who BBC had obviously commissioned to make this documentary, the whole crew was changed halfway through the production of that documentary, is that right?
Yeah, according to the Hollinshead family, because they obviously were being interviewed by the crew.
So that suggests to me, it's again, someone's not happy with the information that's been put in that documentary and has wanted to control it in some way.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what it shows, doesn't it?
One final comment on the filming, right? Throughout my whole life, right, and when I've been involved in whatever incident it might be, see someone shoplifting or a car accident or whatever, never ever in my life has there just so happened to be a film crew filming it when I've been there in any incident, right? So I find that a very big coincidence that they just so happened to be there. I feel that there was some kind of plot for them to be there. I can't prove that, and I don't know that that's true, but I can
see where you're coming from, because I've gone down them lines of thought as well, and it's there to be debated.
But I tell you what I'll do, David, just for the sake of speediness, I'll just run through what allegedly happened. Okay. So she's released from the court. She hangs around to about 4 p.m. in this court. She's in an area that she's not familiar with, and she's hanging around the court, and then about 3.5 hours later, it's about 7:30 p.m. she starts talking to Glen Hollinshead, and then at some point she goes back to his house with one of Hollinshead's friends, and they then share some drinks till quite late at night. The friend goes back to get some beer and then comes back to the house. At some point she goes out of the house for 10 minutes and comes back. They don't know where she went. Eventually the friend leaves the house. This is Malloy, and you've got a full statement from him, and you've interviewed him. Then Sabina stays the whole day at the house. The whole evening at the house. They don't think they had sex.
And the night,
right? They don't think they had sex because there was tests done. Right. Then she presumably was there the whole of the following day, and the following evening.
That's right.
This is when Glen Hollinshead was stabbed. But no one's seen her stab him. Someone saw him coming out with blood, etc. She runs away. And you've uncovered massive anomalies in the evidence that you think there was at least one other person involved in that murder. So that's a brief summary of it, right? I want to make one point here, David. Apparently, when Malloy was talking to her in Hollinshead's house, he said that she was acting totally normally and no signs of any injuries. That she wasn't in pain or anything like this. Now, to me, that says to me one of two things. Either one, she wasn't hit by a vehicle, all that was fabricated, or she possibly has some sort of, she's not normal, in other words. I couldn't understand how she's just offering them cigarettes and having a drink, and seemingly she was anxious and looking out the window, but how isn't she completely in agony? That was one thing that made me curious, that I couldn't understand.
Apart from, as you know, drugs is obviously certain drugs is
can take that away.
Take any kind of pain away, as you know.
So this woman she's released from the court, and she's kind of hanging around, and she somehow bumps into Hollinshead. So just take it from there, David.
That's it. So I've always been led to believe in the documentary that, according to Peter Malloy himself, that they met Sabina just outside Christchurch, which is next to the Fenton Magistrates Court. They'd been drinking in that pub called the Royal Oak. Now, the fact of the matter is, another important thing that we got back that's never been passed before is Glen's property. Well, the police returned his mobile phone. Now, that mobile phone has not been switched on for over 4 years. Well, I got it. I charged it. I had to buy a battery because the battery had gone, hoping I'd find something. And it turns out we did. We got text messages. One from Peter Malloy, which proved Peter Malloy hadn't contacted Glen for 36 hours, which is, on his own statements, is a bit odd.
Right.
And what I mean is a bit odd. What I'm saying is that he promised to go round and visit Glen the next day, or text him or phone him, but he didn't. Why didn't he?
Right.
He's the lad that lives local. Now,
so
but this phone message proved, because I had to then phone the person whose name came up, called Mick, who was a friend of Glen's.
Right.
It turns out Glen had already met a woman, blonde. There were not many women that day, about 3.5 hours before Peter Malloy allegedly said it happened.
Okay. So he might have chatted to her some hours before. Peter Malloy thought that Hollinshead was meeting this Sabina for the first time.
Yeah.
So he may have actually spoken to her some hours earlier.
And if you look at Simon, who is Sabina's son, who has widely defended his mother over the years on social networks. So Simon seems to indicate in his conversation that his mother knew Glen in some way.
Okay. Now, but you've not managed to get an interview with Simon, have you?
He won't. None of them will ever speak.
So what you've done is you've gone on social media networking sites and just looked at things
through all the comments.
Said. Okay,
we've got through the comments on that.
It's some evidence, but it's not as good as getting an interview with him.
Oh, definitely, no. But if you've got to say, these are his own conversations he's had over a period of 6 years.
Right.
6 years. He mentions America, he mentions Sweden, Norway, everything. Not once does he ever mention Ireland, for
It would
instance.
be good to ask him where his mother was between those missing years as well.
But he's adamant. He doesn't seem to want to talk at all. He's quite annoyed about it. He's actually made statements of people like, interfering in his family's life and that, he's been quite rude about it. So.
Right, okay. Now, we don't know that she was in Hollinshead's house the whole of the following day, although we presume she was, because she's then, this incident happens where Hollinshead gets stabbed.
That's right.
So do you think she was there in his house the whole day?
It seems to be that was the case. Right. Even though we do know that she'd gone out the
previous night for 10 minutes.
Yeah, for 10 minutes. It seemed to be to use the phone.
Yeah.
What's intriguing is that she had a laptop. Now, when she went to open her laptop, she wanted to show them photos of her family on the laptop, but couldn't.
She didn't know the password.
She didn't know the password. So I believe it's either there, maybe Sabina's, Ursula's. It could be possibly, because she did have her passport on her as well. But
she's possibly stayed there the whole day with Hollinshead. Yeah, and then at some point, Hollinshead gets stabbed, although there's no witness that she actually put the knife in.
Not at all.
And there was here's one point, David, which I found extremely suspicious, is that the coroner is the same coroner for Charles de Menezes, and the same who was this, it's Dr. Shorrock, and the same coroner in the Tomlinson case. The police officer who pushed Tomlinson over and he died.
On the G20 process,
if you follow cases such as the Charles de Menezes case, you realise there's been massive cover-up in that. Yeah. So presumably it's possible that this coroner is someone who's will write the report the way they wanted to. You've got information about the coroner's report, David, that's not publicly available. Tell us about that. Right.
Well, again, on that, we also have another pathologist, Dr. Kohler. Now, Dr. Kohler was for the prosecution. Right. But what I'm saying is that, like you said, when there's cover-ups, they make things convenient. Now, in this case, Dr. Kohler and Dr. Shorrock, the two pathologists, come from the same stable. Right. They come from the same office. So that's nice and easy to keep everything in house. Right. The same thing, let me just go off for a second, the Crown prosecution and the defence teams who actually done the court hearings also come from the same chambers, number 5. Right. So you've got the coroners come from the same shop and the prosecution and the defence teams.
We'll come on to the trial in a second, but continue.
So then what I'm saying is, it clearly, what's unusual with Kohler's report, Kohler doesn't mention anything about the width of the blade, for instance. Now, when you write a coroner's report, you write the width, the length, the depth, everything, the dimensions, so you can clearly get in your head for your fella peer to be able to read it, know exactly what this weapon was that recovered. So he doesn't mention the width of it, which is convenient in certain ways. What I mean is it doesn't then become obvious to you the differences in the 4 wounds that were found on Glen. However, they did Shorrock covering his arse in a way, because he's been criticised for the Tomlinson case and he's been done on the
de
Menezes. So he's basically, this time around, said in his opinion it's a possibility there was another weapon involved. Right. He does clearly go on to the other page that in his eyes only one weapon was a causative weapon that caused the heart, and the other 3 wounds were done by another weapon. So, and I done this, I don't know if you can see here quickly.
There's a lot of detail.
There's a diagram of it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So that shows you clearly, when you're seeing the book, clearly that these are different sized weapons.
And there's also the position of the wounds on the body suggests that someone's maybe held the person while someone else has stabbed them, perhaps.
That's right.
So, again, it's possible that she's some kind of patsy in all of this. Yeah. Now, and then we've got the testimony of Joshua Garrett. Now, I'm going to say straight off, as soon as I saw this guy in the documentary, I just thought, who is this smooth-looking plant? Yeah. That's what I thought, right? And you've looked at his testimony, and asked him for an interview, and he won't be interviewed.
Time and time again. And then you realise he was hailed as a local hero.
Now, he's the guy who tackled Sabina when she was supposedly fleeing from this murder.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to have stopped his car and ran after her, and you've done all the calculations as to where she was running from and to. And
I've run it.
Yeah, there's no way that he could have caught her and done what he said he did.
No, not in the timescale, and according to the police's own statements.
Right.
And not only that, we put it to him to say, well, how did this happen? And he realised we've tumbled him, and that's why I don't think he's come back.
Right.
Because it cannot happen. His sequence of events of him fighting and taking the hammer off Sabina at the end of Duke Street.
Yeah.
If that did happen, then how comes so many 999 calls were being received, seeing Sabina after the event up by the motorway on the roundabout, still with the hammer?
Yeah, I mean,
so did he take it off her or not?
We're only touching on some of the things which show there's some kind of cover-up in this case. But let me just list some of them, David, so we can get them in. The Hollinshead requested the court bundle and still haven't managed to get hold of it. The medical records of Sabina were requested from Sweden, and they couldn't get hold of them. Now, the judge said that the twins suffered from a rare temporary bout of insanity. Okay, and now, just answer this question for me, David. Why wasn't this a jury trial? Is there a clear answer to that?
Yes, because if this gone to a jury, undoubtedly Sabina would have to have been found not guilty.
Right.
Because the evidence isn't there that would give you a conclusive, be able to conclusively find her beyond reasonable doubt guilty. Right. It's just not there. So weak. Right. The case itself, because as I say, going to the coroner's report. Right. I found out now, you'll see in the book as well, Sabina's left-handed for once, for one. Right. All the wounds are on this side. Right, okay. So for what I'm saying, if on your side, it's there, here, there and there. Yeah. Now, a left-handed person, that would be here. Yeah. But they're all on that side, indicating there was definitely a third person involved. Right. Let me just quickly just say as well, she had, when you see on the documentary, Peter Malloy said she had a clear plastic bag, which sounds like the police bags, you know, custody bags. She had a clear plastic bag with her red long coat that she had on the motorway that she slips off. That was in the bag. Her laptop was in the bag. Some mobile phones were in the bag. Cigarettes, CDs, and this kind of thing was in the bag. Now, had Sabina done what she had meant to have done to Glen, when she ran out of the house and then up to the motorway, that happened. Some days later, some days after the event, after she'd jumped off and she'd been arrested, some days later, all her coat and her stuff, not the laptop I'm saying, or the phones, but her coat and her personal cigarette boxes and CD covers were found discarded on a mud pathway, which they took as a shortcut from the oak to the thing. So what I'm saying is, how did that stuff get abandoned? Right. So what I'm saying is, that could have only been taken at the very instance this fight took place with Glen. Right. And whoever ran out of the house with the bag, looked in it, discarded the stuff up the alleyway, because how else did it get there? Sure.
It sounds to me like there could well have been at least one other person involved in that. Yeah. And as I say, we're not, you know, there's quite a lot of things we haven't covered, but let me just read this out to finish, David. Yeah. Because the Hollinsheads are trying to get this investigated. Yeah. And these are the questions that the Hollinsheads want answers to. Why did the Staffordshire Police ignore what happened in Liverpool and not mention it in the BBC documentary? Why did the police officers in the BBC documentary say what they did, knowing what had really happened at St Anne's Street Police Station in Liverpool? Why was this Section 136 film footage edited out of the BBC documentary, and who was responsible for doing this? Why did they feel the need to do this? Why did the three AMHPs and other professionals agree Sabina was fit and well for release only 5 hours after the incident, when the recommendation is normally 72 hours in such circumstances, and considering her twin sister was still in intensive care? Why did the magistrate not ask for a pre-sentence report before sentencing Sabina? Why was the assault charge against PC Corp dropped? Why is the coroner's report and the first post-mortem carried out by Dr. Kohler, why does it not include the width of the blade of the knife at the scene? Why doesn't he highlight the obvious presence of a second weapon like that of Dr. Shorrock? Why is there still no toxicology results in the report? Why is the Hollinshead family being denied access to the court bundle of evidence in this case? Why haven't the UHNS replied or tried to assist the Hollinshead family in this matter? The question of compensation for Hollinshead family ought to be considered. So, you know, you've highlighted all of these in your book, David, and I do, you know, commend your research for that. And if people do want to research this case themselves, then they need to get hold of this book just to find out and try and fill in, because there's so many questions that you've raised by doing your research, David.
Yeah, you clearly see why I've come to the assumption of why I think they were involved in a police cover-up. It's been involved in a police cover-up because purely they were under police observation, involved what they were involved with. The e-book, I'll just let Aidan to add because you're showing the paperback there.
Yeah. The
e-book carries 24,000 more words in the appendix, and that's where we cover the MK Ultra and Superintendent Soldiers more than this. This is more on the evidence that's been presented to us as a criminal case. Right. I'm open-minded on this, but through going on what previous experience, it's a police cover-up for sure. Other authorities are involved as well. They've put themselves in it. What they're covering up, who knows for certain?
All right then, David. Well, thanks very much again. And remember, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night.